Hello, everyone. Scott Sommer here. So I'm so excited to talk to you about this podcast today about movement. So you notice how I didn't say exercise, because exercise is kind of like a diet, right? Following a diet. So let's just talk about movement. I mean, like, how much do you move on a daily basis, and why is it important? Is something we're going to talk about. And what are the best types of exercise, and how do you get started? So these are the topics we're going to talk about today in this podcast. So let's get started with the concept of movement. Now, I will say that that's one of the ways that I started my health journey. As you know, I was sick as a child with epilepsy, and my dad was a bodybuilder. So he had this strong, healthy body, but he didn't have a healthy body when he was young. He actually had a bad leg, that would swell, and it was his left leg that would swell. Sometimes he'd be in bed for 6 months at a time, wasn't able to go outside and play and have fun in life. And so one of the things I learned from him was I got a weight bench, and I was about 10 years old. And my dad introduced me to weights, and so I started lifting weights at 10 years old. I lived in a second-story room, which is where my room was, and it was so great to be able to look outside and lift weights and get stronger. And that's what my dad noticed too in his life, that when he lifted weights, he got stronger and had more energy. And so those are the purposes really of exercise, is to feel stronger, have more vitality, and have more longevity. And because when you have strength, you have energy. And when you have energy, you have strength. And it kind of goes back and forth. And then you have sustained energy, which is really interesting. As we talked earlier in another episode podcast about the body being electric. So this helps sustain your electrical body, and your battery is sustained with exercise because it keeps things moving. So basically, why do you exercise? Because the body needs to keep moving. If you don't keep the movement going, then things stagnate, kind of like a river. If you threw big boulders into a river, then the electricity or the water would stop flowing, right? And that's what happens to people that don't exercise. Maybe, we exercise in school, in grade school, and then, people love doing that, because you get outside for exercise. I love the kids, that tell me, their favorite, part of school is recess, I mean, like, who doesn't love running outside, And so with that said, it's important to realize you want to feel like a kid again, then get back to movement, And one of my favorite forms of exercise, going into what should you do for exercise, is really the trampoline. So as you know, I'm a jumper. I admit it. I'm just wild about jumping. And so I've done this for years. One of my favorite exercises, jump rope on the trampoline, because I feel like that combination is like the most amazing engineered type of exercise. It all started with my kids when they were younger and like 10 or 12, and they challenged me to jumping rope on a big trampoline outside in the backyard. And so I did it, and we all did it, and we all tried to jump longer and longer and like create a competition. And I still believe that should be an Olympic athlete competition someday. So with that said, so you got to pick the exercise. So we know that you want to do exercise and movement to stay healthy, to have energy, vitality, and avoid disease. Because disease are like those boulders that are thrown into the river. They block electrical flow, they block energy, they block blood flow, white blood cells. And, when I've seen live blood analysis, it's like serious. Like when you have a serious disease or when you feel tired, you look at your blood, it is not vibrant. It's not moving. It's stuck. And it's like those boulders, so it's really serious when you don't exercise. And so we know why we should exercise. And so just pick an exercise, maybe it's just the first thing is walking or stretching. Make sure you breathe when you exercise. It's really important to do so. And so I recommend walking and stretching. Yoga or Pilates are great, exercises to get started with. And then And then also, if you want to go into some sort of aerobic exercise versus anaerobic. So you want to do both. I recommend lifting weights or doing bands at least 2 to 3 times a week because you need to build your muscle. Sarcoidosis is a term for the loss of muscle mass. So one of the things I guarantee as we age that we lose bone mass and we lose muscle mass, and they're actually related. So when we lose our muscle mass, we literally lose our bone mass as well. And so it's so important that you exercise with weights of some sort or bands. If you're, if you don't want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's okay. If you don't have to be a bodybuilder, but you do want to make sure that you build muscle. And so when you do muscle building exercises 2 to 3 times a week, then that will help sustain your energy. And that's the major reason to exercise, is to avoid disease, to have energy, and sustain your energy throughout life. I mean, do you want to feel alive and vital when you're 70 or 80 or even 90, because you're going to use those muscles to keep you standing up and also to stress your bones so that you keep strong bones, a strong structure. You wouldn't want to live in a house and then all of a sudden the house starts, wavering or moving when you're inside your house or when you're walking around your house. It would be terrible, a terrible feeling to have that happen. And a lot of people do. As we age, we start to lose our muscle mass, our ability to have balance, which is another reason to exercise, which is why the trampoline is so great. Of course, make sure you have a trampoline that has a bar that goes across in the middle of it is always the best, or hold on to a chair and just start bouncing. Just start walking in place and then jumping a little higher. And I do not recommend any flips of any kind, because that could be dangerous. So, but with all of that said, we have to understand that you have to get started with exercise. So what I do is I call it the 5-minute rule, and that's how you get started. So basically you say to yourself, I have 5 minutes today to exercise or to move. Just call it movement. And today I will move for 5 minutes minimum. And then as my wife and I, we all get into our ruts, right? Where we can't, we feel like we don't want to get up. We don't want to exercise. We don't have time. But everybody has 5 minutes. And so maybe you're going to do it at work. Just make a decision about when you're going to exercise. First thing in the morning is always the best. I also recommend a little bit of exercise at the end of the day, something that's light. So we have an exercise bike. We also love to go outside on our bikes. We love to walk. And I also make sure I work out with weights. I have a total gym. This is really great because it works out all of your muscles. It doesn't take a lot of space. And one of the things that we've done recently this last year is we actually even moved so that we could have a space, a great room for our gym. And that has changed. It was just life-changing, especially since this home order of staying home. And we thought, well, gyms are closed, so let's make it the best. Let's make our own gym. And so that's what I encourage you to do, is make your own gym. Get started today. Do the 5-minute rule. And remember that if you don't exercise, you will become like a river with big boulders, and it will lead to more pain, more inflammation, more stiffness. And you can always tell if you're getting enough exercise by how you feel in the morning. If you feel stiff when you first get up and you feel like you're barely able to move, you feel like 100 years old, you will continually be declining in this method of no exercise, and it will lead to more problems for you, more arthritis, more stiffness, more bone loss, and lack of energy. So why not exercise? Get started today. So if you would like to learn more about these concepts, make sure you watch more of our videos, go to our website, or even become a patient. So for now, be healthy, be well, and I'll see you soon.